Hey everyone, Jay here. Welcome to the first of a two series of videos discussing the Halo series. I originally planned on doing a single video for all mainline entries, but that has proved to be a bit too much for me, so I decided to split the video in two parts. One that covers games developed by Bungie, so Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo ODST, and Halo Reach, and the second one for 343 Industries mainline games, Halo 4, Halo 5 Guardian, and Halo Infinite. The second video will be up shortly. Very few games have left a mark in the gaming cosmology as Halo has. Born to be a star, this now fading celestial body has served as guidance for many gamers and developers alike, its light reaching wide within a generation. Consoles have always had such a star. Nintendo has a whole constellation of them, from Super Mario to Donkey Kong, from The Legend of Zelda to Metroid. It is hard to pick one as the definitive representative of the console. Others might wane and tilt in firmament, not so firm, such as with Sony. Many polygons have held the position, but neither for too long. Spirit the Dragon or Crash Bandicoot came and went, same as Sackboy, Kratos, or Nathan Drake. The cute little star traveler Astrobot has claimed the brightest spot lately, but will it last? One sure will hope so. Then we have Halo. Born on the turn of a century, child of a troubled development, it trailed on the path of every titan such as GoldenEye 64 and Perfect Dark to become the face of a new generation, the Xbox generation. While initial reception was shaky at first, it didn't take long for Master Chief and Cortana to become the equivalent of rock stars in the gaming world. I wasn't there to see it, but man, I wish I was. After finally playing the first 5 games, I can see how Bungie captured lightning in a bottle. The year of the first Halo release is consistently regarded as one of the best years in gaming, perhaps the best ever. At first, I was shocked by the fact that it wasn't in the top 10 of the bestseller games of 2001. Then again, competition was fierce. GTA 3, Final Fantasy X, Metal Gear Solid 2, Pokemon Gold, Silver Crystal, which yes, on Europe they were released in 2001, Silent Hill 2, Devil May Cry, Onimusha Advance Wars. It's an impressive list. But an interesting tidbit is that Halo is one of the few ones that wasn't part of a franchise or sequel. This resonates with me, seen in the distant future of 2025, where I regularly hear and see people complaining about how nowadays everything is derivative, either a sequel or a remake or a remaster. The circumstances are different, sure, but it's interesting how 24 years ago we still had to contend with some of the same issues we see today, and how tinted those rose glasses can be. So, what is Halo? Well, it's a first-person shooter set in the far future where you embody Master Chief, a super soldier capable of plowing through hordes of enemies with hot butter knife precision, in a mission to save humanity from their biggest enemy, the Covenant, a group of alien races united under a theological leadership. Humanity is at war, and apparently we ain't doing too good. Interestingly, you start the first game in media res, meaning the story starts in the middle of the action rather than at the beginning, and you have to piece things together as events unfold. It's a common device that is particularly effective in movies and theater, where the visual guidance and quick advancement of the script facilitates reeling the spectator in. Video games, especially back then, loved to start their games with a tutorial before throwing you into the real deal, so this way of introducing the series struck me as an interesting choice. It's not complicated to follow up. While fleeing Covenant forces, you somehow arrive to a massive megastructure known as a Halo Ring, and you are tasked to escape into it to prevent the Covenant from obtaining Cortana, your AI companion filled with knowledge of everything related to the human military, including Earth's location. And so you land in the vast mountain ranges of the Halo world, ready to unearth its mysteries while plowing through legions of Covenant forces in your mission to save humanity from more enemies than expected. It is here, in the open fields of the Halo Ring, that magic strikes for the first time. Growing up, I never cared for sci-fi. It never struck a chord with me. I never found that piece of media that grabbed me as much as books like Harry Potter, or The Hobbit, or The Lord of the Rings. I preferred Warcraft 3 to StarCraft, Warhammer Fantasy to 40k. Some of my favorite games toyed with the concept in some way or another, but I was never entrapped with the visuals of laser blasts, spaceships, faster-than-light travel, or the exploration of the human frontiers until I played Mass Effect around 2011. I wonder if this is why Halo wasn't on my radar until much later, when I started being interested in the gaming industry as a whole, and particularly after YouTube burst into the internet. Whatever the reason, I am glad that I got to with the Halo franchise as late as I did. Much has changed in video game storytelling, and even though by today's standards Halo's main story is average at best, I can see why people were having their minds blown back then in the early 2000s. The graphics and presentation were striking for the time, and the pacing, although it's the product of its generation, felt very appropriate for what the series brought to the table. The atmosphere, the weapons, some of the alien map designs, they pulled you into the world right from the start and never let go. And that first shot of us landing on Halo for the first time, it's just mwah. From then on, the story goes on to become a journey where you will learn about ancient alien races, of humanity's forefathers, of honor, betrayal, companionship, but primarily about how badass Master Chief is. Badassery goes hand in hand with super soldiers, which has always paired nicely with sci-fi. I mean, check out this scene from Halo 2 where Master Chief decides to ride a bomb into the void of space by himself with no protection other than his standard issued armor, and not only he successfully lands it on an enemy vessel, but he rides a shockwave back to his ship and an amused crew. And that's only the first mission. John, that's his real name, is an icon in a medium with no shortage of superhumans, especially post 9/11 and the rise of pro-military iconography in most American media. The writers leaned into his ruggedness and one-liners, recognizing the fact that you will spend the vast majority of the game massacring hordes of aliens by yourself like a mean-killing machine, so why not go all the way? We never learned much about John. We don't need to, that's not what we're here to do. We're here to save the world and make it look good. Of course, every badass needs a sidekick, and this is where Cortana jumps in. A snarky artificial intelligence that is the perfect pairing for Master Chief. Their bond is at the center of the main trilogy's events, and their separation at the end of Halo 2 is poised to be as dramatic an event as the series formulates throughout its run. While she is strictly a voiced companion with no gameplay involvement, I keep comparing them to other legendary video game pairings, like Link and Navi, Banjo and Kazooie, or Joel and Ellie. They might have lost some of their luster in recent years, but watching some of their scenes, me, Such a Hurt now, has become a favorite of mine. It truly was like witnessing history in the making. One of the things that I kept wondering about is how much of the first trilogy's story was planned beforehand. Halo 1 wraps everything decently well, despite the game starting with many mysteries in its wake. Halo 2 and 3, though, are a different beast altogether. Halo 2 suffered from the enormous success of the first installment, and whether the result of ambition or poor planning on the writers and production team's end, Bungie ended up having to top the game in order to meet deadlines. This led to a subpar story and what is the wildest cliffhanger I've seen in a video game in probably forever. What is funny is, when I first saw, or rather experienced, the ending, I immediately thought, oh, this could only happen because dev times were so short back then. I'm sure they had the third one almost ready to go. But no! Halo 2 was released in November of 2004, while Halo 3 arrived in September of 2007, almost 3 years later, which is wild. I am so glad that I avoid spoilers so vehemently and never learned of this because, although it was a huge kick in neither regions, it was one worthy of admiration. If anything, due to the fact that the series bounced back from it. And what a bounce it was. Despite the history mishaps, Halo 2 is still highly regarded as one of the best game sequels. But Halo 3 is the crowning achievement of the series, the one that hawks all the nostalgia. It certainly is the best of the first 3 installments, an entry worthy of all the hype and stupidly high expectations. The campaign was the best among the 3, both in terms of gameplay feel, mission variety, and because it finally wraps Bungie's run with Master Chief. With that said, the story remains bare bones for such an epic tale that will take you all over the galaxy. There are some glaring oversights, some of which are somewhat answered in other games, but overall I found scratching my head trying to piece together part of the game's timeline. There's also the fact that Halo 3 has an open ending, with Master Chief and Cortana floating around the outer edges of the galaxy. At least this time the plot is properly tied up and there's an epilogue to give a sense of closure, But I have to admit that leaving Master Chief's future in the air, or rather space, right after Halo 2's ending was certainly a choice. The original Halo trilogy might have been finished, but Bungie still had work to do. 10 days after Halo 3's release, Bungie announced that they were going independent, leaving Microsoft's embrace in search for other, fresher opportunities. They would lose the rights to the Halo franchise, however, and they were still contractually obligated to provide 2 more games. This is where Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach come into the picture. With Master Chief's story under wraps, but leaving the window open for future games, Bungie finally had the opportunity to change the scope of the games and put on their artistic freedom towards a different end goal. Both games turned out to be prequels. ODST happens during the events of Halo 2's Covenant Strike on Earth, while Reach covers the events previous to Halo 1. That means that Reach is canonically the first game in the series, but I played the games in release order, so ODST comes first. Halo 3 ODST, as its name reveals, was originally conceived as Halo 3 DLC, but what should have been a brief palate cleanser to alleviate the weight between Halo 3 and Reach somehow kept growing in scope until Bungie decided to give it the full game treatment, including a $60 price tag that, from what I've seen, many people thought it was unjustified. ODST toys with a different format than the rest of the series, going for an almost open world feeling that used the classic episodic format as epic flow to tell its story. You roam the streets of New Mombasa as the Rookie, the newest squadron member of a ODST or Orbital Defense Shock Troopers, trying to reunite with the rest of your fellow members after a deployment gone wrong. You chase clues of their whereabouts throughout the streets, and each clue is a new mission in the form of flashback. There is some freedom in the order in which to conduct this investigation, but eventually all roads lead to the game climax, which is where my main issue with the game lies. See, the plot of the game only kicks in on the second to last mission, and the lack of setup messes with the execution of the narrative in a catastrophic manner. I don't want to dwell too much on it, but suffice to say that the whole point of the game is to set up a particular future event in Halo 3. The thing is, the setup is unnecessary, useless information that doesn't provide an answer to the events of the main games, despite having been released several years afterwards, and having plenty of time to cook something out. While I appreciate that they experimented with the formula, the setting, and the storytelling opportunities, ODST is my least favorite entry. Halo Reach, though, has become my favorite so far. The production value and world building is several magnitudes higher, and it was the most immersed I have been in the Halo universe yet. The way characters interact with the world and how that world is defined through their interactions, everything fits in a neat little packet that the first 3 games didn't quite achieve. The closest it came to it was with Halo 2 and the latest Schism, but nothing in those games hold the candle to Reach. Noble Team had the camaraderie that ODST's squadron lacked, and it told the story it was originally meant to in a convincing manner. However, the plot stumbles in the final chapters and doesn't properly answer any particular question, which appears to be a pattern for Bungie. I thought the point of the game would be setting up the events leading up to Halo 1, but it turns out that this story had already been told almost a decade ago. One thing I've been doing to experience the narrative of the games around their release dates is to use Game Informer's archive of magazines spanning all the way back to the late 90s. Imagine my surprise when I finally get to Reach's issue, and this is the first paragraph of the article. Halo Reach is not a retellling of Eric Nyland's 2001 novel The Fall of Reach. In that prequel tale, readers learn the origin of Master Chief and the Spartan suit, witnessed their training, and came to understand the tragic tale of how Master Chief ends up fighting as a lone Spartan throughout the 3 games that follow. That story has been told. This bothered me more than I thought, because I have been playing these games for weeks and I wasn't told this story. Why did the Pillar of Autumn happen to slip jump right beside a Halo ring? Did Master Chief and Cortana meet right before that mission? Why is Master Chief asleep in a pod when they narrowly escaped from Reach? That's what I would have loved to know, given that this is a prequel. Imagine if Star Wars Rogue One, which is a prequel to the original movie, only mentioned in passing the Death Star and the station schematics, and is never brought up again. Oh, that would be disappointing, right? Reach is my favorite of the game so far, but that's due to its strength as a standalone rather than its place as a prequel. All in all, the games feel good to play even in 2025. I did have some issues, of course. I might be getting old, or I might not be used to playing shooters on a controller, but there were some infuriating moments where I wanted to shut the Xbox down and call this video off. The Halo series isn't the type of games that require twitch reflexes or crazy maneuvering, so I quickly realized that if I was stuck on a part, it was due to lack of knowledge rather than skill. I picked up the wrong weapon against the next wave of enemies, or perhaps I didn't use my connects effectively, or I allowed myself to get surrounded. Still, it was quite an uphill battle, particularly during some of the most annoying encounters with the Flood, which have become one of my most hated enemies ever. I found myself enjoying the gameplay more and more with each entry. Dual wielding in Halo 2 was surprisingly fun. Halo 3 then refined the rest of the gameplay and really settled into that classic Halo firefight cadence. ODST, and particularly Reach, topped it off with great maps and mixed up the type of missions with more frequency, which I found was a great way to dynamize the same old mission system. One thing I assumed, in my ignorance, was that the series marked a before and after for the FPS genre, revolutionizing it. But seeing the games released in the first decade, not many come to mind that were heavily influenced by the series, the same way that other shooters influenced the genre, such as Resident Evil 4 or Gears of War. Games like Fear, Bioshock, Call of Duty, or Unreal Tournament, to name a few, are vastly different not only from Halo but from each other. But while no other games might play just like Halo, there is one thing that it did bring to the table that I wasn't aware of. Halo was a console exclusive, and I had to come up with a control scheme that replaced the fluidity and precision of the mouse. And Bungie did deliver on that front. By restricting the weapons to a maximum of 2 that you could swap with a button press, and enabling a discrete auto-aim, shooting enemy aliens became an intuitive affair. Long gone were the days of awkwardly stopping to aim like in GoldenEye 64 or one of my childhood classics, Medal of Honor for the PlayStation 1. While we now take it for granted, and even though Halo doesn't have as many spiritual successors as one might expect, almost every console shooter trailing it has benefited from its DNA in some shape or form. Its contributions in that regard have been monumental, and I have a feeling that this isn't as well known as perhaps it should. Oh, I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but I played the Master Chief Collection version, which likely is a much better product in 2025 than it was when it originally released. My favorite part of the game was the ability to switch the graphics on the fly for the first 2 games. I tried playing using the original ones for the same reason I decided to play on an Xbox console with a controller rather than on PC, to try and capture the essence of how it felt to play the original games as much as possible. Well, I say this, but I toyed with both modes from time to time to check the new models and see how the facelift revitalized the world and setting. Speaking of graphics, a bit of a warning, if you, like me, felt unable to play more than a couple of missions at a time due to getting headaches or feeling nauseous, bump up the FOV slider to 90 or 95. I don't think I've ever felt physically ill playing the game before, but man, Halo did a number of me until I figured that out. Anyway, there is one thing that I knew from the start that I will never be able to experience, and that was the joy of co-op and multiplayer. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but as good as Halo's campaigns are, the true magic occurred with its multiplayer capabilities, whether it was playing alongside a friend or family member on the same couch, or the truly wonderful and innocent early days of online multiplayer. The impact of its multiplayer is what carried the legacy of the games. I'm not saying that the campaigns are bad, I am saying that the multiplayer was that good. I might not have played back then, but even I was aware of all its capabilities, whether it was the major battles full of vehicles or the forts that allowed for some very creative gameplay maps. The online servers are up and running, but I will confess that I haven't played a single online game. I cancelled my Game Pass membership early this year, and I have no desire to pay for another subscription just to be able to play online in the year of our Lord 2025. I was, and I am, a bit torn about this though. Should I have ponied up these $7 a month just to get a glimpse of this bygone era of gaming? How much will I have to invest to really get into it? Because I know me and I love multiplayer games. I find it very easy to get invested into them, learning about them, finding all those small details that seem so obvious when someone teaches you about them but didn't really think about them during the single player. For example, it turns out different weapons have different melee attack values. The game never teaches that. With a lack of consoles during my teens and early 20s, I submerged myself into multiplayer games for the most part, as they were very easy to run on even on potatoes PCs such as mine. It is precisely because of that I know better than to dip my toes into Halo's multiplayer. I am not in my teens or 20s anymore. Time is precious, time is fleeting, and there are so many other games that I want to experience. So, while I understand and appreciate just how big and important Halo's multiplayer and social aspects are, I won't be saying much about it given my self-imposed banishment. So, besides the actual games themselves, what has piqued my interest about this first batch of Halo games? What secrets have I missed? Was there any particular article or essay or anything particular that I have been avoided until the day that I finally played the series? I think I've always had a passing interest in Halo mostly due to its importance in gaming history. I have to admit that a big part of why I bought an Xbox Series X alongside the PlayStation 5 was being able to play Halo. However, as I have been playing more and more, I have dipped my toes into the game's history, which for Halo is twofold. Halo and Xbox go hand in hand. Without the success of one, the other simply would have faded away, and we would have never had the PlayStation versus Xbox rivalry. Sure, it was a stupid rivalry that polluted conversations around video games for many years, but imagine if Sony didn't have any competition during the PS3 era.
$599.
Of course, that rivalry has pretty much disappeared in 2025, with Xbox basically throwing the towel for this generation. But the gaming landscape would have been so much different if Bungie hadn't been working on a prototype for a new RTS back in the 2000s. That's right, I might be one of the dozens of people out there that didn't know that Halo was originally meant to be an RTS. For a Mac, nonetheless. It's been a very interesting read about how much a particular element can change the course of a game. The initial prototype's experiments with physics, vehicles, and early 3D graphics were going so well that Bungie decided to keep rolling the camera closer and closer to the action until it became a third-person shooter instead. If you watch the video of the original presentation, hosted by none other than Steve Jobs himself, turtleneck included of course, you can see how it features so many vehicles and evoked that feeling of openness that the original Halo presented. How Microsoft managed to snatch that and turn this seemingly obscure game into the flagship for their unknown console is something I have a hard time conceiving. The play turned out very well for Xbox, that is for sure, well, and for Bungie as well, who overnight became one of the most famous developers out there. Unfortunately, Bungie is currently in the news for a very different reason, but that's for the next video. From Halo Combat Evolved to Halo Reach, when their contract with Microsoft ran out and granted them the freedom to pursue other games, Bungie had one hell of a run. Not without its hiccups, of course, but after going over so many past interviews, videos, and articles about this era Halo, I am impressed by the piece of history that they managed to carve out for themselves, and in turn for the rest of us. Speaking of media I consumed, let me tell you, I was not ready for the lore heat that is the Halo universe. There are 37 novels out there, with another one slated for December of this year and another one for 2026. The lore for this universe is immense, which made sense when I started thinking about it. The games were popular but very sparse in its plot, backstory, or character development, so there was a huge mob of knowledge-hungry fans ready to immerse themselves in this world. I haven't read them, and I doubt I will, given that my book backlog is almost as high as my gaming one. But I have dipped my toes in the next best thing, the Halopedia. Halo's use of nouns was dizzying at first, so I have to do some digging trying to pick up the pieces I have missed while avoiding as many spoilers in the meantime. It is clear that there was a lot of love and interesting ideas poured into the Halo series, although Bungie didn't lean on this wealth of knowledge too much and kept things very simple in their games. What about what others had to say? Of all the video essays I saw, there were two that caught my eye. The enhanced marketing of Halo 3 by Default Cheesecake is a hilarious and insightful essay on just how bonkers the marketing leading up to the game was, detailing what was probably the peak of video game consumerism in ever. Teenage me living in Europe never caught wind of it, but man, was the American audience enthralled with Halo. It was more than just a video game, it was a cultural phenomenon that video games rarely achieve by themselves. The closest I can think of in terms of cultural reach is The Last of Us, and only thanks to HBO's series being an unprecedented hit. At some points, it reminded me of how cringy video game coverage used to be, with their age verification cans and Dorito flavored controllers and whatnot, but it was a great watch to help you understand just how truly massive Halo was in its first years. I totally recommend the watch. The link is in the description. In stark contrast, NakeyJakey's triumvirate of Halo videos are a personal account of how important these games were, not only for him but for many around his age growing up, all telling Jakey's enduring and truthful dorkiness. Each one focuses on one game, with the first one detailing how important Halo was for the FPS genre, the second on how badly Bungie messed it up during development but were saved by its superb multiplayer, and the third one, my favorite, goes on about how Halo 3 truly was the hallmark of the series, the crown jewel, the last time Bungie put Master Chief on the screen. If there's anything that comes to mind when I hear people talk about Halo, it's this: the pure, unadulterated joy of those who grew up playing the games, the memories of untold hours submerged in this universe. It's a warm feeling, and although I know I'm far too late to experience it myself, the legacy Bungie has left in the world still shines bright enough to convey just what great ride this was. Of course, Master Chief's story is far from over. The digital torch was transferred through to 343 Industries, the Microsoft-led studios that kept the rights of the series after Bungie's independence. While the rise of the Halo brand was a nostalgia-filled trip, with all those MLG clips featured on ESPN and remembering that Red vs. Blue was once a thing, what is to come is a sour tale filled with disappointment and missed marks. A story that goes hand in hand with Xbox's decline as a brand. Until then, I would rather focus on bright side and remember Reach.